Welcome to the Shetland Times podcast, and you're joined by myself, the host, Marjolein, and this week I'm speaking to Davy Cooper.
Yeah.
Hi Davy, how are you?
Oh, not too bad at all.
Could you please introduce yourself for the listeners?
My name is Davy Cooper. I come from Marjolein.
Yeah.
I'm born and brought up there. I work at the Shetland Amenity Trust, and I've been a storyteller for probably the last 10 years.
What brought you into storytelling?
The little Lawrence Tulloch asked me to help him to organise a storytelling festival, and I got along to it, and we brought up a lot of storytellers, and I got along and I listened to them, and I thought, well, I can do young.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
Have you always been telling stories before that, but just in a less official capacity?
Well, the thing is that everybody tells stories. They just don't realise they're doing it. And they tell stories about, what happened to them today, or what happened to their uncle last year, or what happened to their grandfather in the First World War, or whatever. Everybody tells stories.
Yeah.
It's just that I do it in front of audiences. And that's the essential difference. And when you think about it, I mean, that's just here in the neck to get up and do your story in front of her. That's the only difference between me and most idiots.
After you did the storytelling festival, when you started becoming a storyteller, did you make a point of researching more stories than you knew before, or did you already have like a back catalogue of?
No, I certainly research stories. Man, I build books, I read stories.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky in that I had three kind of mentors that I could listen to most of the time. Lawrence Tulloch and Elma and Charlie Lawrence.
Yeah.
And I learned an awful lot of stories just listening to them.
Yeah.
And you take that story and you kind of put your own spin on it. Your own twist. Every storyteller tells every story their own way, and you might even change how you tell a story depending on the audience you're telling it to.
Yeah.
You don't tell the same story to a classroom full of 5-year-olds than you do to a hall full of pensioners. It's a different version.
Yeah.
They're looking for different things for you. So yeah, I mean, I cannot say that I just consciously get out to learn this story or that story or the other story. I would buy books of stories and read through them and think, oh, well, here's one that I might fancy doing. And some of them you maybe do once and they didn't work, so you didn't do them again. And other things becomes part of your kind of regular
repertoire.
Yeah.
So when you became a storyteller, are you involved with the Scottish Storytelling Institute?
Yeah, I did become a member of it, but I'm no more into the kind of commercial side of storytelling.
Yeah.
So you kind of put yourself on a register and you kind of hire yourself up to go and do bits and pieces and attend festivals and things like that. I'm not really into that much. I just prefer to do stuff locally. But it was good to be on the register so that you can't what they were doing.
Yeah.
And you would see a storyteller on one of their newsletters and think, well, it might be nice to bring a young person up here because it sounds as if they have interest in stuff to do.
Yeah, it's relevant to hear.
Yeah.
So how many storytellers do you know of currently in Shetland?
That unfortunately is a big problem because we have lost 2 or 3.
So is that like you and Mary Blantz?
Yeah, and there are 1 or 2 other things that tell. I mean, I would kind of count Morris Henderson as a storyteller too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's mainly count as a musician, but it's very rare that Morris does any kind of performance that he doesn't put stories in out and in among the music.
One of my favourite nights was the night that when I lived with my friend Ashley, we just ended up in Mariel, and he ended up telling us all these Trowie stories just off the hoof, and then he told us one about the Trowie wedding, and he finished off by playing the tune on the fiddle, and it's just like one of those perfect nights. You'd have paid money for it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm a great believer in trying to integrate music and storytelling because there's so many of our stories that's based on tunes, and after no based on the tune, you can find a tune that fits with.
Yeah, or was written about it after it. That's brilliant. So, how was the storytelling festival then? That was...
Well, it's a good few years ago now. I mean, we brought up about 6 storytellers. We had Tommy up for Orkney, we had several Scottish storytellers up, we had George McPherson across for the Hebrides. And we got around all the schools, we had events in local halls and so on and so forth. We had a hugely successful event up at Tulswick at the Booth. Yes, the Booth.
Oh yeah.
Really great storytelling venue then. But it's the kind of thing that's very difficult to sustain. I mean, we got grant funding to do it, but you can't do that every year. And storytelling is one of those things that there's no huge commercial value to it. But if you're hiring in storytellers for the Storytelling Society, they're looking for £150 a session. That's their kind of set fee. Now, if they put them in for 3 sessions a day, that's £450 a day they're paying.
Yeah.
So you'll be kind of careful if you're going for that kind of expense, plus the cost of bringing folk up here and paying their accommodation at the same time. You're spending an awful lot of money if you bring in a visiting storyteller.
Just thinking I should have become a storyteller.
I mean, I suppose I can see that point of view because it's not something where you're going to get, 10 sessions a week.
Yeah, so when you,
I mean, you might only get 1 day a week's work, which case, it's £300. It's not a huge wage for a week. And I mean, you might get a week's work, or you might get 2 days doing a festival somewhere. So I mean, it's very kind of dodgy.
Do you think there's more scope just for evenings within Shetland? I know Alex Ranquist Wright did that kind of... Did you do a series of storytelling nights at the museum one time?
We did certainly some pre-Christmas stuff. I did and did stories for them. I actually think stories works better if you integrate it into something else.
Okay.
Rather than saying pure storytelling. I think that if you can balance it up with a bit of music and maybe a few other bits and pieces, it gives them a kind of round the evening's entertainment. I think if you're going to do pure storytelling, it almost needs to be to a relatively pretty audience.
Yeah, just like a pretty room full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the Shetland storytelling style is very conversational. If you go across to Scandinavia, the storytellers across there performs.
Yeah.
So it's all, standing up in big gestures and funny voices, and I mean it's a theatrical performance. Here in Shetland, the tradition has always been just like sitting outside the fire, yarning with folk.
Yeah.
And the story just kind of comes out as if you were doing that.
Yeah, so not to say the Norwegian style is contrived, but it's almost just more natural.
Well, the Scandinavian
yeah, I say it like that.
The Scandinavian style is it's very much in the skaldic tradition. It's the saga poet tradition that they come. So it is a performance. But it's
Homeric.
But it's here the storytelling has developed as something that was done about the nights when folk was maybe in for a carding, or the men was sitting speaking about the fishing. There's some of the boys was maybe half of the merchant navy, so they came in and they were a swapping of tall stories and whatever tales about the days when men was in swear riggers spending 3 years gathered around the world rather 3 months.
Yeah.
So
I read that with the Inuit peoples, then they used to do a lot of stuff. Well, the tradition of doing storytelling often was at night when it was so dark and cold, so they're all sheltering together. but it was quite early on in the evening. They just lie and tell stories.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The other thing is, like I said, they knew it's very much preserving their heritage.
Yeah.
And their mythologies and everything have a particular meaning for them in terms of the way that they live their lives. Storytelling is maybe less relevant nowadays to what it was in Shetland back in the days of crafting.
Which is really interesting, because I think if it's less relevant, it's in a certain way even more important, because if we don't repeat it, it's going to be completely lost.
Yeah. And that is the truth. I mean, we don't necessarily need with oral tradition now, because we record, we can
like
write,
now,
and we can write down. And I always had this discussion with authors. It's never an argument; it's a discussion. But as soon as you write a story down, it's like pinning a butterfly in a collection. All of a sudden, that becomes, oh yeah, but there's got to be on the rang. You understand the way that it's written down. Well, no, because I tell the story the way that I want to tell it. I don't tell the story the way that it's written down.
I think that's really important too, because I think as well sharing that piece of information might help more folk to take an active interest in storytelling, because that fear of maybe reciting a story to you that they know you've told and doing it wrong, if they realise that it's okay to interpret it and tell it the way you feel it.
The problem with a lot of folk is and I'm seeing it happening with folk, is that they come to storytelling, they buy a book and they try to memorise the story. And halfway through they lost their way.
Yeah.
They forget what the next bit is. And they dry completely. And it's excruciating if you're watching them for the side and they just stop dead and don't keep what to do next. Because once that goes out of your memory, it just does not come back if you're standing in front of an audience. And because you didn't keep the story, you cannot prompt them either. If you're doing a play, there might be a prompt off with the script, telling you where to go next. Story, you can't do that. So, what I tell folk when they come to storytelling is just memorise the plot. Don't memorise the words. Just keen where the plot goes next. And that's half lazy to do.
That's the same as stand-up. They tell you when you write jokes, apart from the obvious words in the punchline that might be particular, when you memorise your routine in stand-up, don't memorise it word for word, because when you trip, you're lost.
Absolutely.
I never thought of it like that.
Storytelling is exactly the same. Storytelling in some ways is, and I mean, depending on what type of storytelling you're doing, but there's some sessions that I do with storytelling that really is just extended stand-up.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Some of the stories is just really, really long jokes.
Yeah.
With a punchline at the end of them, but they just ramble on and on and on forever. And you see some of the older, the comedians that I kent when I was growing up, in particular Dave Allen, the Irish comedian. Now he basically tells stories with a punchline, and he would ramble on for 10 minutes doing one single joke. But it's the same kind of thing. Some of the stories you do are serious, but a lot of them, they felt like to come out for a laugh. It's just one dumb disaster the whole time. So you do end up doing quite a lot of funny stuff. And that is about as long as you mind the punchline. The rest of it can kind of wander around where it wants to go. And a lot of the stories is the same. And when I'm doing storytelling workshops with bairns, it's all about, just because they'll come to you and you'll say, well, okay, do you ken any stories? And they'll say, well, no, don't I? Okay, do you ken Cinderella? Yeah. Okay, what happens in Cinderella? And they tell you what happens in Cinderella.
Essie Petal.
And you say, well, do you ken that there's a Shetland version of that? Essie Petal and the Blue Yow.
Yeah.
No,
I love that story.
But I'd say not.
Sorry, what did Essie Petal come for?
Essie Petal is actually a Norwegian boy.
Oh, okay. Is it just so similar to the Cinderella story by chance?
There's a whole series of Assie Battle stories in Norway.
Okay.
And for some reason, whoever decided to do the Cinderella across here, decided the Assie Battle it means practically the same thing. It means Ashraker.
Yeah,
it's the same as Cinderella.
Yeah.
So it's, and there are Orkney story, Assie Battle in the Mester Stoorworm. It's about a boy
and a stoorworm
that fights the stoorworm, and the stoorworm's really it's a kind of version of the Midgard serpent.
Yeah.
Of the Norse mythology.
Yeah, I've heard that is the giant worm around it.
Yeah.
Ah.
So others kind of things, but the Shetland Assie Battle, the fact that she's female, is really quite unique. But it's just somebody at some point has decided to put her in.
That's amazing. I love your story. I just want to apologise to listeners if they can hear the wind sounds in the background. There's the hearse.
That just makes it more authentic for the Shetland interview.
Well, that's also I wanted to speak to you about storytelling coming to the winter nights, because I think it's also, well, it can be done any time of year, but that whole idea of the nights drawn in and you being in the house. And it's often when many folk go visiting and recite stories.
And I think it's when you find, maybe I was doing another session at the Booth in Hulswick, and that was about the first time for us leaving, howling outside. And of course the wires there is about 5 feet thick.
Yeah.
And you were kind of cocooned, and they had the open fire jam, and they were made like lentil soup for the supper and that.
Oh, nice.
And that was just, it created the absolutely perfect storytelling atmosphere, because that noise of the wind outside actually adds to the whole feel. And if you're doing stories about half fishing and and a lot of our stories is about weather related things.
Yeah.
Certainly the more serious stories that we do. So that whole feeling of the Shetland winter kind of adds to the effect of you're trying to create. Where you do stories makes an awful lot of difference. I mean, I do stories for the Nature Festival, and I do them up at Lindsay Lee and Kergart in the old ruins up there.
Oh, nice. Is that the ones in the trees?
Yeah.
I know what you mean, yeah.
And I do them dressed as a wizard.
I have seen pictures.
Yeah, and they bring the bairns up through the woodland, and James Mackenzie does an explanation about the trees and all, and they arrive at the ruins and they come into the ruins and there's a wizard sitting there. And it tells them stories, and they just think it's absolutely magical.
Yeah.
I'm very different from some Shetland storytellers. I tend to dress up at the drop of a hat, so you'll see me in Viking costume and dressed as a pirate and dressed as a wizard and all kinds of stuff. But that, I think, is just because it makes it pretty bit more entertaining for bairns.
I think it's a very Shetland thing to want to guys.
Well, that maybe has part to do with the kind of guys and tradition.
But it will also, that whole actually dress as a wizard will help the image stick in bairns' mind better, and the whole experience will resonate more.
And you can tell the stories kind of based on magic as well, if you're dressed like that, and it has more meaning.
Yeah.
And as I say, I mean, the pirate stuff I tend to do if I'm doing any. We had
I'm pretty sure I've seen you on the Victoria Pierrefort dresses.
I'm certainly doing the
captain.
Yeah, I do a kind of half skipper one as well.
Yeah.
if I'm doing half fishing stories and that kind
of
thing. But I mean, that's just so much stuff comes out. I mean, I'm kind of working on something which I'm good at the moment with feral cod fishing.
Oh, nice.
I mean, there's another whole raft of stories I'm picking up from there. Somebody's given me a manuscript about the Arctic whaling, and a whole new drift of stories in that I'll probably adapt and use at some point in the future. Everything that you read has the potential of being a story.
It's actually recognising all the different stories you could then go on and tell.
Well, it's recognising how you can put them together, because one of the things that you had to do if you're doing storytelling on your own, and increasingly I find myself doing it on my own, either it's better if they're try you can bounce on stories off each other and you hide the whole night.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it on your own, you hit the story has to flow and into the tither.
Yeah.
You cannot just stop and say, well, yeah, I'm expecting about half fishing for half an hour and no, I'm not expecting about Shetland weddings.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Unless you're telling the Hillswick wedding story.
So you used that one to move throwy stories into weddings.
But then if somebody was sitting beside you while you're telling the story, they could go through the catalogue in their head quite peaceably. And
well, what tends to happen is that certainly when I was telling me Charlie Lawrence when he was still alive, me and Charlie can't each other's stories that well that you tell the story and you can't what one Charlie would come back with.
That's amazing.
And you just and strangely enough, I did my first storytelling session with Tammy Eisbister for Trondra. We did one for Boat Week, and we did it completely off the cuff, no rehearsal. We just sat down and we didn't have a clue what stories we were going to tell. We had been away at Portside together for 30 days. And I just started telling the story and Tammy came in and we did about 20 minutes without a break at all. But if you keen at somebody, I mean, Tammy has an almost inexhaustible collection of stories that he can draw. I probably have over 100 I use fairly regularly.
Yeah.
So, filling 20 minutes or half an hour is very easy.
Once you've said this to me before, and it's something that's always stuck with me, so I wanted to speak about it today as well, was the fact that, and it's really sad, but when you lose a storyteller, you lose other stories.
Yes.
And it's one of the things that I feel would be like a drive for folk to hear more and at least try and tack them in.
The problem is that you don't just lost the stories. I got a lot of Charlie's stories because we did a lot of sessions together. Not only that, but I used to drive him to the sessions. So I got more stories in the car as you got in the performance.
On the way there and back.
And you also got the ones in the car that you couldn't necessarily tell at the performance, which was sometimes the best stories in the lot. But even if I tell Charlie's story, I didn't tell them the way that Charlie tell. And that's the thing. I didn't hear his particular memories of what tell him the stories either. So although this oral tradition comes down, and it comes down over centuries, everybody does things a pretty bit differently. And I'll tell a story of Charlie's and think, well, it's not as good as the way that he did. Because he could mind added pretty detail. Especially the ones, Charlie had a lot of stories about when he could have done ploughing for folk in the 1940s and 50s. And characters that he kent and stories that he got through that characters. And he'd added detail. So he could tell you almost what the rig it was or what, sheep crow they were at when they did such and such a thing.
Yeah.
Now, although I hear memory of that stories, I do not have the kind of mind that can retain that detail.
Yeah.
So that's lost, the absolute accuracy. And in the same way, I'll probably tell stories about the oil era and, what happened in Mossbank when oil arrived. And I'll be able to put detail on that as to what was involved and when it happened and why it happened. But anybody hearing that story from me and then trying to repeat it in 10 years' time, they're not going to be able to retain that level of detail.
Yeah.
And that's why, to some extent, we should have the advantage nowadays in terms of getting stories published, getting stories recorded, because you can then go back and listen and get some of that detail.
Yeah.
And that's detail that makes stories believable.
Yeah.
Folk doesn't realise that, and folk will listen to a story and it's a story that's completely improbable and they will ask you, well, it's untrue. And you think, are you serious? It was about troubles.
I believe in tribes.
We're the best one in the world. Tribes are sort of at least semi-mythological. Although I'm yet to meet any Shetlander that will deny the existence of them completely. Everybody has that kind of little thing at the back of their mind.
So many folk have their own experiences too.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you start speaking to folk who will actually come up with, one time, which is a story.
Yeah. But if you add pretty bits of detail,
yeah,
then suddenly it becomes very realistic because, you wouldn't hear the kind of detail if it wasn't true.
No.
If you were just making this up, you wouldn't have keen that, they did such and such.
I think folk love detail, and I think as soon as you add the pretty bits of detail, folk can more comfortably imagine it so they can immerse themselves in it more.
And the real advantage that we have in Shetland is that we have the opportunity to tie stories to places.
Yeah.
So such and such a story, it happened here. If you keen the place, you can add the detail because you can say, well, that's like the House of Wedding story. I mean, you can say what crafts you get to, the fact that you get to a crying time to get somebody to come fetch him across, run his row and so on and so forth. And you can add that level of detail into it because you keen the landscape.
Yeah, I know, and that's amazing when you picture it in your head. Yeah. That's it. So, is there any events coming up soon that anyone could go to for storytelling? The wordplay is coming up, and there's a
wordplay is coming up. We're doing a concert in the 8 Hall.
Oh, nice!
And there's going to be some storytelling in that.
Oh, brilliant!
And that there'll be some storytelling, and there'll be some sketches, and there'll be some all kinds of bits and pieces. But yeah, there'll definitely be a story or two in there. Probably of the more amusing variety, I would think.
Yeah.
Because that's more appropriate for concerts. But, and there'll likely be other bits and pieces getting on the lead up to Christmas.
And what recommendation would you have for anyone who's either keen to hear more stories themselves or go to a storytelling night, or be folk who'd like to try and tag up the mantle and share stories?
Anybody that's interested in telling stories, I'm quite happy to speak to them. Yep. Give me a ring and I'll wander along to my room, have a cup of coffee with you and you have about stories. No problem at all. Don't be intimidated by it. I mean, that's the biggest bit of advice that I can give to anybody. One of the great things that I learned from Charlie Lonesome, when I wrote with Charlie, he was coming on in years. He was well through his 80s, tied up with him. I was telling stories with him. And he used to kind of lose his way sometimes in the middle of a story. And all that Charlie would do was he would stop and he would look up at the audience and he would say, "Hey, think about this for a minute or two now." And he would spend a couple of seconds just mulling it over, and then he would realise what he was and he would move on. And he said to me, the keenest audience is here on thy side for the most part.
Yeah.
They're not there to have some kind of combat with you. They're wanting to listen.
Yeah.
And if you take a couple of minutes to sort yourself out, they're no bother. They'll wait while you do it. It's more embarrassing for you than it is for them. But Charlie had got it done to the point where he didn't find it embarrassing anymore. He just did it. And yeah, fine, we just move on. And that's the thing, and tell stories to folk. If you're sitting in a big group, tell stories to them.
Yeah, and probably recognise when you have been telling stories.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, because you do, everybody does it all the time. Yeah. My nephews and nieces used to come home for the school, and they'd come into the house and their grandmother would say, "Well, what have you been doing today?" And they would tell us stories.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you do it for a very early age.
Yeah.
And then, as soon as somebody asks you to, how does this work, or what happened under it, you're telling them a story.
Thank you, Davy. And thank you for speaking to us today. That's been brilliant. And look out for wordplay or from Davy Cooper. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to Shan't Times podcast again this week. Cheerio!